Hello, I'm Pastor Harry Zanting from the First Christian Reformed Church in Red Deer, Alberta. So we are reflecting on the 7 words of Jesus from the cross, and Eugene Peterson calls them prayers, and I want to call them that as well. So we're looking today at the first of 3 prayers in the Gospel of Luke. And this one goes like this: Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Now, let's reflect on that for a moment. Who is them? Who is Jesus asking the Father to forgive? Well, if we look at the verse just before our prayer, it talks about the criminals that have been crucified with him, one on his right and the other on his left. They are criminals, right? They're guilty. One of them clearly admits it. He says, "We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve." So maybe Jesus is saying, forgive them. Or perhaps it's the sneering rulers who are taunting Jesus. Or maybe it's the mocking soldiers who have taken away his clothes and right now are casting lots for them. Or maybe even the passive watchers who are doing nothing, just simply standing there watching. And Jesus is asking that they be forgiven. Or maybe the disciples who are nowhere in sight, not even in this passage, because they've abandoned him. And maybe Jesus is saying, forgive them. All of those people are, in a way, participating in some way in Jesus' humiliation and in his death. Or perhaps Jesus is praying it for them all. A very broad them, which I think is what he is doing. Now, there's a bit of irony I find in this prayer. You know, they're putting him to death, right? But his very death forgives, right? His death pays for sin. Now, I find there's another example, and there's many of them in the Bible, of how God uses what is sinful, uses what is evil, and brings about good. Not that the sinful deed is good at all. It isn't. But he uses it to bring about something good. So there they are participating in his death, which is not good. But the death itself, God takes and uses for good. I also think Jesus is being very generous in his prayer. Okay? He gives this to those who aren't even asking for it. They haven't even asked, but he's giving it anyway. He's giving it to those who don't even know what they are doing wrong, but he gives it anyway. He gives it to those who are hurting him in a very deadly way. Now that's generosity. It's not, I'll forgive you when you admit you are wrong. It's not, I'll forgive you if you pay. It's not, I'll forgive you if you receive the punishment. No, it is himself he gives for forgiveness. And I said that purposely. He gives for forgiveness. He does so freely, though it costs him his very life. That's generosity. Now, this prayer could be one of our own prayers, and I think it should be one of our own prayers, especially when it comes to relationships. If we want relationships to continue, if we want to stay connected, especially to the people that we love, then forgiveness is essential. There are many times when we hurt each other. And those we love and know well, we know how to do that, and we do it. But it's also one of the hardest prayers to pray, especially if we've been deeply hurt. Look what they do to Jesus. I mean, if that were done to us, could we forgive? Or Could we ask God to forgive them? But not only does Jesus pray for them, that they might be forgiven, but he does the very thing which brings forgiveness. He dies for them. Jesus introduces, I believe, a novel way to deal with our divisions, our anger, our hurt, our bitterness. We would just keep fighting, right? We would just keep trying to make it even, but what is even, really? We would stay away from those who hurt us. We would stay angry with those who hurt us. We would stay with broken relationships and we would nurse them. How do you fix those things? How do you fix what they did with Jesus? How do we get peace? Forgive. Or ask God to forgive. It is a God thing after all to be able to forgive. Forgiveness. Now, Jesus prays this prayer out loud, and I think purposely so, for us, as a model for us to pray. In fact, in the book of Acts, we find Stephen, he's considered one of the deacons, praying almost the same prayer. He's being persecuted, he's being stoned to death for his faith. And then it says in Acts 7, verse 60, then he fell on his knees and cried out, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. In other words, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And he's modeling Jesus, and perhaps also encouraging us to do the same. Now let's go back for a moment to the question of who is them. Who is Jesus asking the Father to forgive? I wonder, let me suggest that maybe it's also us. Forgive us. Okay. Do we know what we're doing to God or to others? And yet, even if we know it or don't, it causes so much damage. Well, we could say we didn't mean it, or maybe we did. But how do we fix the damage we have done to this world, or to people, or to God? How do we fix the damage to relationships through our words and our actions? Well, Jesus died for our sin, to forgive us. He generously prays for us too. And you know what? That's the Easter story. It's about forgiveness. Well, thanks for listening. Keep praying, and may your Lenten reflections show you the way to peace.